Marcus Wellington stood at the tall glass windows of his expensive apartment. He looked down at the busy street below. Rain was falling hard on the city. The drops hit his window like tiny bullets. Marcus wore a perfect black suit that cost more than most people made in a month. His gold watch caught the light as he moved his wrist. He was not happy. His driver James had called in sick this morning. James never got sick. Marcus needed to get to the Grand Palace Hotel for a very important meeting. This meeting could make him millions of dollars. He could not be late. Marcus picked up his phone and called his assistant. "Get me another driver right now," he said in a cold voice. "I'm sorry, Mr. Wellington," his assistant replied. "All the private car services are busy today. There's a big conference in town. Maybe you could take a taxi?" Marcus felt angry. A taxi? He had not been in a regular taxi for 15 years. He was Marcus Wellington. He owned 12 buildings in the city. He drove a car that cost $200,000. People like him did not take taxis, but he had no choice. The meeting was in 30 minutes. He grabbed his expensive leather bag and walked to the elevator. His shoes made sharp sounds on the marble floor. Everything in his building was perfect and clean, just the way he liked it. Outside, the rain was getting worse. Marcus stood under the building's fancy entrance. The doorman tried to help him find a taxi. Several yellow cabs drove by, but they all had passengers. Marcus looked at his watch. 25 minutes left. Finally, an old taxi stopped in front of him. The car was yellow, but the paint was fading. There was a small dent on the side door. The windshield had a tiny crack. Marcus stared at the car with disgust. This was not the kind of vehicle he should be seen in. The driver got out to help with his bag. He was an older man with gray hair and dark skin. His clothes were clean but old. He had kind eyes and smiled as he opened the back door. "Good morning, sir," the driver said. His voice had an accent. "Where would you like to go?" Marcus did not smile back. He looked at the man's name tag. Ahmed Hassan. The name sounded foreign to Marcus. He did not like foreign names. He believed people in America should have American names. The Grand Palace Hotel. Marcus said. He did not say please. He did not say thank you. He got into the back seat and immediately wrinkled his nose. The car smelled old. There was a small air freshener hanging from the mirror, but it was not enough. Ahmed got back in the driver's seat. He adjusted the mirror and started the engine. The car made a small noise, but it worked fine. Ahmed looked back at Marcus with another smile. "Beautiful morning, yes?" Ahmed said, trying to be friendly. "The rain will make the flowers grow." Marcus rolled his eyes. He did not want to talk about flowers with a taxi driver. He wanted to sit in silence and think about his important meeting. But Ahmed kept talking. "I have been driving taxi for 8 years now," Ahmed said as he pulled into traffic. "I meet many interesting people. Doctors, teachers, business people like yourself. Just drive," Marcus said sharply. "I don't need conversation." Ahmed's smile faded a little, but he nodded. "Of course, sir, sorry." Marcus pulled out his phone and began checking his emails. He had 12 new messages about the hotel deal. This was the biggest business opportunity of his life. If everything went well today, he would own part of the Grand Palace Hotel. It was one of the most expensive hotels in the city. As they drove through the city, Marcus noticed Ahmed driving carefully. The older man stopped completely at red lights. He let other cars go first at intersections. He drove exactly at the speed limit. Marcus found this annoying. He was used to drivers who went fast and took shortcuts. "Can't you drive faster?" Marcus asked rudely. "I have an important meeting." "I am sorry, sir," Ahmed replied politely. "The roads are wet from the rain. It is safer to drive slowly. We will be there soon." Marcus made a sound of annoyance. He looked out the window at the other cars. Some of them were much nicer than this old taxi. He saw a black Mercedes like the one he owned. He saw a BMW and a Lexus. He felt embarrassed to be in such an old, cheap car. Ahmed tried again to be friendly. "What kind of business are you in, sir?" "Real estate," Marcus answered without looking up from his phone. "I buy and sell buildings." "That sounds very interesting," Ahmed said. "I always wonder about the tall buildings in this city. Someone must be very smart to build them." Marcus almost laughed. This taxi driver probably did not even finish high school. How could he understand the complicated world of real estate? Marcus bought and sold properties worth millions of dollars. He made decisions that affected hundreds of people's jobs. This driver probably lived in a cheap apartment and worried about paying for gas. It takes education and intelligence, Marcus said coldly. Some people are meant for big things. Others are meant for simple jobs. Ahmed was quiet for a moment. Then he said, yes, every job is important. My father used to say that all honest work has dignity. Marcus looked up from his phone. Your father? Let me guess. He was probably a taxi driver too? No, sir, Ahmed replied quietly. He was a teacher. He taught literature at the university. Marcus made a sound like he did not believe this. Right, and I suppose you went to university too? Ahmed's hands gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. Yes, sir, I did. In my country, I was a professor. I taught English and Arabic literature for 15 years. Marcus laughed out loud. A professor? Driving a taxi? That's a good story. Ahmed's face showed hurt, but he kept driving. He did not say anything more. Marcus went back to his phone, feeling satisfied that he had put the driver in his place. These people always made up stories to sound more important than they were. As they got closer to the hotel, Marcus looked at the time. They would arrive exactly on time. Ahmed had been right about the timing. But Marcus did not want to admit this. Instead, he started looking for things to complain about. This car smells terrible, Marcus said loudly. And why is there a crack in the windshield? Don't you people take care of your vehicles? Ahmed looked in the mirror. I am sorry about the smell, sir. I try to keep the car clean. The windshield crack is small. It does not affect the driving. It affects my comfort, Marcus snapped. I'm used to much better service. Ahmed nodded sadly. I understand, sir. I do my best with what I have. Marcus could see the Grand Palace Hotel ahead. Its golden doors and red carpet entrance looked welcoming. Soon he would be out of this terrible taxi and back in the world where he belonged. A world of expensive suits, fancy cars, and important people. He started gathering his things, eager to get away from Ahmed and his old car. He had no idea that this taxi ride would change his life forever. He had no idea that the man driving him was about to teach him the most important lesson he would ever learn. The taxi pulled up to the hotel entrance. Marcus was ready to get out and forget this unpleasant experience. But fate had other plans for him. As the taxi moved through the busy streets toward the Grand Palace Hotel, Marcus felt his phone buzzing. He looked at the screen and saw it was his business partner, Richard. Marcus, are you almost there? Richard's voice was loud through the phone speaker. Marcus did not bother to lower his voice or ask Ahmed if the call bothered him. I'm in some terrible taxi, Marcus said loudly. My regular driver got sick, so I had to ride with the common people today. Ahmed heard every word but kept his eyes on the road. His hand stayed steady on the steering wheel, but Marcus could see his shoulders get a little tense. Well, just get here fast, Richard continued. The hotel owner's representative will be here soon. This deal could make us both very rich. We're talking about a $50 million partnership. 50 million? Marcus repeated, making sure his voice was loud enough for Ahmed to hear. That's more money than most people see in their entire lives. Some people work their whole lives and never make real money. Ahmed glanced in the mirror but said nothing. Marcus enjoyed the effect his words were having. He wanted this taxi driver to understand the difference between them. Another call came in. This time it was Marcus's lawyer. Marcus, I have the contracts ready, the lawyer said. Make sure you impress them today. This hotel deal will make you one of the richest men in the city. Don't worry about me, Marcus replied loudly. I know how to handle business. I've been making money since I was 25. Not like some people who waste their lives in dead-end jobs. Ahmed's jaw tightened slightly, but he remained professional. He turned the corner carefully, avoiding a puddle that might splash water on other cars. Marcus noticed the careful driving and felt annoyed. Can't you go any faster? Some of us have important lives to live. I am sorry, sir, Ahmed said politely. The streets are wet. I do not want to have an accident. An accident? Marcus laughed. I suppose you can't afford insurance on a car like this. I have insurance, sir, Ahmed replied quietly. I am a safe driver. I have never had an accident in 8 years of driving taxi. Marcus made a sound like he did not believe this. 8 years? And this is all you've accomplished? Driving other people around in an old car? Ahmed was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I am working hard for my family, sir. My daughter is in medical school. She will be a doctor soon. Marcus burst out laughing. Medical school? Right. Do you know how much medical school costs? Do you know how smart someone has to become a doctor? Yes, sir, Ahmed said softly. It costs about $60,000 per year. My daughter Layla is very smart. She graduated from college with highest honors. Marcus shook his head. These people, he muttered, but loud enough for Ahmed to hear. Always making up stories to sound important. Ahmed's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter. It is not a story, sir. I am very proud of my daughter. She works very hard. Sure she does, Marcus said sarcastically. And I suppose you're paying for this imaginary medical school with your taxi money? I work 3 jobs, sir, Ahmed replied, his voice still patient but showing some strain. I drive taxi during the day. I work at a warehouse at night. On weekends I clean offices. Marcus rolled his eyes. 3 jobs? And you still can't afford a decent car? Maybe you should learn to manage money better. Ahmed pulled up to a red light and turned around to face Marcus. His eyes were sad but dignified. Sir, I came to this country with nothing. I left everything behind in Syria. War destroyed my home, my university, my life. I came here to give my children a better future. Marcus felt no sympathy. Oh, here we go. Another sob story. Let me guess. You were some important person back home, right? I was a professor of literature, Ahmed said quietly. I taught at Damascus University for 15 years. I had published 3 books of poetry. Poetry? Marcus laughed even louder. That explains everything. No wonder you ended up driving taxi. Poetry doesn't pay the bills. Ahmed turned back to face the road. The light turned green and he drove forward. His silence was heavy with hurt and disappointment. Marcus felt pleased with himself. He had put this man in his place. These immigrants always claimed to be doctors and professors and important people. But here they were, driving taxis and cleaning toilets. It proved they were not as smart as they pretended to be. His phone rang again. This time it was his mother. Marcus, dear, how are you today? His mother's sweet voice asked. I'm fine, Mother, Marcus said, his voice immediately becoming softer. Just heading to a big business meeting. That's wonderful, honey. Your father would be so proud of you. Remember what he always taught you. Treat everyone with respect no matter who they are. Marcus glanced at Ahmed in the mirror. Of course, Mother. I always remember Dad's lessons. But as soon as he hung up, Marcus forgot his father's words. Another call came in from his assistant. Mr. Wellington, the hotel representative, is already there. She arrived early. Her name is Dr. Hassan. Dr. Hassan? Marcus repeated loudly. What kind of doctor buys hotels? She's a surgeon, sir. Very successful. She bought the hotel as an investment. Everyone says she's brilliant with money. Marcus was impressed despite himself. A surgeon with enough money to buy hotels was his kind of person. Good, I like doing business with smart people. People who actually accomplish something with their lives. Ahmed's shoulders sagged a little at these words. Marcus saw this and felt satisfied. He wanted this driver to understand that some people were meant for success while others were meant to serve. As they got closer to the hotel, Marcus continued his phone calls. Each conversation was louder than the last. He talked about his expensive car, his penthouse apartment, his vacation home by the ocean. He made sure Ahmed heard every detail of his wealthy lifestyle. You see, Marcus said into his phone while looking directly at Ahmed in the mirror, success comes to people who work smart, not just people who work hard. Some people spend their whole lives working hard and still end up nowhere. Ahmed's eyes met Marcus's in the mirror for just a moment. There was pain in those eyes, but also something else. Something that looked like pity. This made Marcus even angrier. And some people, Marcus continued, speaking directly to Ahmed now, never learn to accept their place in life. They waste time dreaming about things they'll never achieve instead of being grateful for what they have. Ahmed's voice was very quiet when he finally spoke. My daughter always tells me that dreams are the first step to achieving anything. She says her dream of becoming a doctor keeps her studying even when she is tired. Marcus laughed cruelly. Your daughter this, your daughter that. You really believe she's going to be a doctor, don't you? I know she will, sir, Ahmed said with quiet confidence. She has already been accepted to do her residency at City General Hospital. She graduates from medical school next month. Next month? Marcus shook his head. You people really commit to your fantasies, don't you? Ahmed said nothing more. He pulled into the circular driveway of the Grand Palace Hotel. The beautiful building rose up in front of them, all glass and gold and marble. Doormen in red uniforms stood ready to help guests. Marcus gathered his things, eager to get out of the taxi and away from Ahmed's stories. He was ready to enter the world where he belonged, a world of wealth and power and important people. He had no idea that Ahmed's fantasy was about to become his nightmare. The taxi stopped in front of the Grand Palace Hotel's main entrance. Marcus looked out at the beautiful building and felt relief. Finally, he could escape from this terrible ride and get back to his important business. Ahmed turned off the engine and got out to help Marcus with his bag. Even though Marcus had been rude during the entire trip, Ahmed still acted like a professional. He opened the back door and waited politely. Marcus stepped out of the taxi and immediately felt better. The hotel doorman recognized him and nodded respectfully. The red carpet under his feet felt good after sitting in that old car. He breathed in the fresh air, glad to be away from the taxi's stale smell. "That will be $18.50, sir," Ahmed said politely, holding Marcus's leather bag. Marcus reached into his jacket pocket for his wallet. Then he reached into his pants pocket. Then he checked his other jacket pocket. His face began to change color. "What's wrong?" Ahmed asked, seeing Marcus's expression. "My wallet," Marcus said, his voice getting louder. "I don't have my wallet." Ahmed waited patiently while Marcus checked all his pockets again. Other hotel guests were starting to notice the scene. Marcus felt embarrassed. He was Marcus Wellington. He did not forget important things like wallets. "I must have left it in my apartment," Marcus said angrily, as if this was somehow Ahmed's fault. Ahmed nodded understandingly. "No problem, sir. These things happen. I can wait here while you go back to get it. Or if you prefer, you can pay me later. I trust you." Marcus stared at Ahmed with disbelief. "You trust me? You don't even know me." "You seem like an honest man, sir," Ahmed replied simply. "And you said you have important business here. I do not want to make you late." For a moment, Marcus felt a strange emotion. Was this taxi driver really willing to trust him with $18.50? A man who had been nothing but rude to him during the entire trip. But then Marcus's anger took over. He was embarrassed about forgetting his wallet. He was angry about having to take a taxi in the first place, and he was furious that this immigrant taxi driver was now being nice to him. It made him feel guilty, and Marcus did not like feeling guilty. "This is ridiculous," Marcus said loudly. "I shouldn't have to deal with this." "Sir, please," Ahmed said softly. "It is not a problem. We can solve this easily." But Marcus was not thinking clearly. His embarrassment was turning into rage. He looked around and saw other hotel guests watching. Some of them knew who he was. He could not let them see him having problems with a taxi driver. "You know what?" Marcus said, his voice getting louder. "I think you did this on purpose." Ahmed looked confused. "Sir? I do not understand." "The long route," Marcus continued, his voice full of anger. "You took the long way to make the fare higher. You probably saw my expensive suit and thought you could trick me." Ahmed's face showed hurt and surprise. "No, sir. I took the fastest route. The traffic was heavy because of the rain. I would never try to cheat a customer." But Marcus was beyond listening to reason. His pride was hurt and he needed someone to blame. Ahmed was the perfect target, a foreign taxi driver who could not fight back. "I've heard about drivers like you," Marcus said loudly enough for other people to hear. "You take advantage of honest customers. You probably don't even report all your income to the government." Ahmed's face went pale. "Sir, that is not true." "I am an honest man. I report everything. I pay all my taxes." "Right," Marcus said sarcastically. "Just like your daughter is really in medical school." Several hotel guests had stopped to watch the argument. Marcus saw this and decided to put on a show. He wanted everyone to see that he was the victim here. "This is exactly what's wrong with this city," Marcus announced to the crowd. "Dishonest people taking advantage of hardworking Americans." Ahmed stood very still. His hands were shaking slightly, but his voice remained calm. "Sir, I am also American now. I became a citizen 3 years ago. I love this country." "American?" Marcus laughed loudly. "You can't even speak English properly. Real Americans don't have accents like yours." The crowd was getting larger. Some people looked uncomfortable with Marcus's behavior. Others seemed to agree with him. Ahmed noticed the stares and whispers. His face showed deep shame and sadness. "Please, sir," Ahmed said quietly. "I just want to be paid for the ride. $18.50. I have a family to feed." Marcus felt a moment of doubt. The man was just asking for his fare. $18.50 was nothing to Marcus. He spent more than that on a single cup of coffee at his favorite restaurant, but his pride would not let him back down. Too many people were watching. He had to win this argument. You want to be paid? Marcus asked loudly. For what? For driving too slowly? For taking the long way? For making me ride in this piece of junk? Ahmed's eyes filled with tears, but he did not cry. Sir, I did my best. I drove safely. I was polite. I just want what I earned. Marcus turned to the hotel doorman, a young man in a red uniform. This driver is harassing me. He's trying to overcharge me and won't let me go to my important meeting. The doorman looked uncomfortable. He could see that Ahmed was not harassing anyone, but Marcus was clearly a wealthy hotel guest, and the doorman's job was to keep wealthy guests happy. Sir, the doorman said to Ahmed, maybe you should move your taxi. You're blocking the entrance. Ahmed looked at the doorman with surprise. But he has not paid me yet. Marcus saw his chance. I'm not paying for poor service. This ride was completely unsatisfactory. The car was dirty, the driver was rude, and he tried to cheat me. Ahmed's mouth opened in shock. Sir, that is not true. I was polite the whole time. You were the one who was rude. Are you calling me a liar? Marcus asked loudly. In front of all these people? The crowd was getting bigger. Hotel security guards were starting to move toward them. Marcus realized he needed to end this quickly before it got out of hand. He turned to the doorman again. Please deal with this situation. I have an extremely important business meeting. I cannot waste any more time with dishonest taxi drivers. The doorman nodded and approached Ahmed. Sir, you need to move your taxi now. The guest says he's not paying, so there's nothing more to discuss. Ahmed looked from the doorman to Marcus to the crowd of people staring at him. His hands were shaking more now. His face showed the pain of complete humiliation. But this is not right, Ahmed said, his voice barely above a whisper. I have children. I need this money. Marcus felt a small stab of guilt, but he pushed it away. Maybe next time you'll think twice before trying to cheat your customers, he said coldly. He turned and walked toward the hotel entrance, leaving Ahmed standing by his taxi. The crowd began to break up, some people shaking their heads in disapproval. But Marcus did not look back. As he walked through the hotel's golden doors, Marcus tried to feel victorious. He had won the argument. He had shown everyone that he was not someone to be taken advantage of. But deep inside, a small voice was telling him that something was very wrong with what he had just done. Ahmed stood by his taxi for several minutes, staring at the hotel entrance. Finally, he got back in his car and drove away. He had rent to pay, groceries to buy, and a daughter's medical school bills to cover. He could not afford to lose $18.50. But more than the money, Ahmed was hurt by the cruel words and public humiliation. He had been called dishonest, un-American, and a cheat, all for trying to earn an honest living to support his family. As Ahmed drove away, he had no idea that the man who had just humiliated him was about to learn a lesson he would never forget. He had no idea that justice was waiting just inside those golden hotel doors. Marcus walked through the hotel lobby feeling confident again. The marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers. Everything was elegant and expensive, just like he preferred. He had put that taxi driver in his place, and now he could focus on his important business. The hotel lobby was full of well-dressed people. Marcus recognized some of them from the business world. They nodded at him respectfully. This was his world, a world of successful people who understood money and power. He checked his watch. He was exactly on time for the meeting. His business partner, Richard, was waiting by the elevator bank looking nervous. Marcus, there you are, Richard said, hurrying over. I was starting to worry. The hotel's new owner is already upstairs. Everyone says she's very impressive. Good, Marcus replied, straightening his tie. I work best with impressive people. What do you know about her? Her name is Dr. Layla Hassan, Richard said as they walked toward the elevator. She's a surgeon at City General Hospital. Very young, maybe 30 years old. She bought this hotel as an investment. Word is she's brilliant with money. Marcus nodded approvingly. A doctor who understands business. I like that. Too many people in this city don't know how to make real money. They rode the elevator to the top floor, where the hotel's executive offices were located. Marcus felt good about the meeting. He had done his research on this hotel. It was worth $50 million. If he could become a partner, it would make him one of the richest men in the city. The elevator doors opened into a beautiful office area. Large windows showed the entire city below. Marcus could see his own building from here. Everything looked perfect for success. A secretary led them to a conference room with a long wooden table. Several people were already sitting around it, lawyers, accountants, and other business people. At the head of the table sat a young woman in a dark blue business suit. Marcus studied her carefully as he walked into the room. She was elegant and professional looking. Her hair was pulled back neatly. She wore simple jewelry and carried herself with confidence. When she stood up to greet them, Marcus noticed she was quite tall and moved with grace. "Good morning," she said with a warm smile. "I'm Dr. Layla Hassan." "You must be Mr. Wellington." Marcus shook her hand, impressed by her firm handshake and direct eye contact. "Pleasure to meet you, Dr. Hassan. I've heard wonderful things about your business sense." "Thank you," she replied. "Please have a seat. I'm looking forward to discussing this partnership opportunity." As everyone settled around the table, Marcus felt confident. This young woman seemed professional and intelligent, the kind of person he could work with, not like the taxi driver who had tried to ruin his morning. Dr. Hassan began the meeting by explaining her vision for the hotel. She spoke clearly and intelligently about profit margins, customer satisfaction, and long-term growth. Marcus was impressed. She really did understand business. "The Grand Palace has been profitable for 10 years, she explained, pointing to charts and graphs. "But I believe we can increase profits by 30% with the right partnership." Marcus leaned forward, interested. "What kind of partnership are you thinking about?" "I need someone with experience in real estate development," Dr. Hassan replied. "Someone who understands the luxury market." "I've reviewed your portfolio, Mr. Wellington. Your work is impressive." Marcus felt pleased. This was going exactly as he had hoped. "I've been in real estate for 20 years, he said proudly. "I know how to turn properties into gold mines." Dr. Hassan nodded. "That's exactly what I'm looking for. But I need to be sure we share the same values about business and people." "Of course," Marcus said quickly. "I believe in hard work, honesty, and treating people fairly." As he said this, Marcus completely forgot about his behavior with Ahmed just 30 minutes earlier. He was focused only on making this deal happen. Dr. Hassan continued explaining her plans. She wanted to add a new wing to the hotel. She talked about creating jobs for local people. She mentioned programs to help immigrants start small businesses in the hotel. "Immigrants?" Marcus asked, his tone changing slightly. "Is that really necessary? I mean, shouldn't we focus on hiring Americans?" Dr. Hassan looked at him carefully. "I believe America is strongest when we welcome people from all backgrounds. Many immigrants are highly educated and hardworking." Marcus felt uncomfortable with this topic. "Well, of course," he said, trying to sound agreeable. "But let's be honest. Most immigrants don't have the education or skills for good jobs. They're better suited for simple work." Dr. Hassan's expression became more serious. "What makes you say that, Mr. Wellington?" Marcus realized he might be saying the wrong thing, but he could not stop himself. His prejudices were too strong. "It's just reality," he said. "I see it every day. Immigrants driving taxis, cleaning buildings, working in restaurants. They claim to have been doctors and professors back home, but here they can only do simple jobs." Several people around the table looked uncomfortable. Richard tried to change the subject, but Marcus kept talking. "Just this morning," Marcus continued, "I had to take a taxi because my driver was sick. The taxi driver claimed he used to be a university professor and that his daughter is in medical school. Can you imagine? These people always make up stories to sound important." Dr. Hassan's face became very still. She was listening to every word Marcus said, but her expression was getting colder. Marcus did not notice the change. He was enjoying having an audience for his opinions. The driver even claimed his daughter was going to be a doctor. At City General Hospital, no less. As if someone from that background could ever become a real doctor. The room became very quiet. Dr. Hassan's hands were folded on the table, and Marcus could see her knuckles were white. But he continued talking. "I mean, let's be realistic," Marcus said with a laugh. "Medical school costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. How could a taxi driver afford that? And even if they could, do taxi drivers' children really have the intelligence to become doctors?" Dr. Hassan stood up slowly. Her movement was calm, but everyone in the room could feel the tension. "Mr. Wellington," she said in a very controlled voice, "tell me more about this taxi driver." Marcus felt proud that she was interested in his story. "Well, he was from Syria or somewhere like that. Ahmed something. Typical immigrant story. Claimed to be important back home, but obviously couldn't make it in America." "Ahmed Hassan?" Dr. Hassan asked quietly. Marcus looked surprised. Yes, I think that was his name. Do you know him? Is he one of those drivers who causes problems for the hotel? Dr. Hassan was very still for a long moment. Then she walked to the window and looked out at the city below. When she turned back around, her face was completely different. The warmth was gone. Her eyes were cold and angry. Mr. Wellington, she said in a voice that made everyone in the room nervous, I need to ask you something very important. Marcus felt confused by her sudden change in mood. Of course, Dr. Hassan, what is it? Did you pay this taxi driver for your ride this morning? Marcus felt his stomach drop. Something in her tone told him he was in serious trouble, but he could not understand why. Well, he said slowly, there was a misunderstanding about the fare. I felt the service was unsatisfactory, so I decided not to pay. Dr. Hassan nodded slowly. I see, and what exactly made the service unsatisfactory? Marcus looked around the room. Everyone was staring at him. He felt like he was being put on trial, but he did not understand why. The car was old and dirty, he said defensively. The driver was rude and tried to overcharge me. He took too long to get to the hotel. Did he get you here safely and on time? Dr. Hassan asked. Well, yes, but did he treat you politely and professionally? Marcus hesitated. The truth was that Ahmed had been very polite even when Marcus was being rude. That's not the point, Marcus said. I have standards. Dr. Hassan walked back to her chair but did not sit down. She placed her hands on the table and leaned forward slightly. Mr. Wellington, she said in a voice that was calm but filled with ice. I think this meeting is over. Marcus felt confused and worried. The meeting had been going so well. Dr. Hassan had seemed impressed with his business experience. Now suddenly she was acting cold and angry. Dr. Hassan, Marcus said carefully, I don't understand. Did I say something wrong? Dr. Hassan stood very straight, her hands still on the table. Her voice was calm, but Marcus could hear the anger underneath. Mr. Wellington, let me ask you one more question. When you refused to pay the taxi driver, what did you tell him? Marcus felt sweat on his forehead. He looked around the room at all the faces staring at him. Richard looked worried. The lawyers and accountants looked uncomfortable. Everyone was waiting for his answer. I told him the truth, Marcus said defensively, that his service was not good enough for me to pay for. What else did you tell him? Dr. Hassan pressed. Marcus tried to remember exactly what he had said outside the hotel. There had been so many people watching. He had been angry and embarrassed about forgetting his wallet. I may have mentioned that some drivers try to take advantage of customers, Marcus said slowly. What else? Dr. Hassan's voice was getting colder. Marcus felt trapped. He could not remember everything he had said, but he could tell it was important. I might have said something about dishonest people in the city. And what about his background? What did you say about immigrants? Now Marcus was really sweating. He remembered his angry words about immigrants and their stories. But he still did not understand why Dr. Hassan cared so much about this. Look, Marcus said, trying to sound reasonable. I may have been a little harsh, but I was frustrated. These people always claim to have been important back home. This driver said he was a professor and that his daughter is in medical school. It's obviously not true. Dr. Hassan's face went completely white. She was quiet for a long moment, staring at Marcus with an expression he could not read. Mr. Wellington, she said finally, her voice very soft. What if I told you that Ahmed Hassan really was a professor? What if I told you he taught English and Arabic literature at Damascus University for 15 years? Marcus laughed nervously. I would say that's impossible. If he was really a professor, why would he be driving a taxi? Because, Dr. Hassan said, walking slowly around the table toward Marcus. He had to flee Syria when the war started. He lost everything. His home, his job, his books, his entire life. He came to America with nothing but his wife and 2 children. Marcus felt his stomach getting tight. Something in her voice told him this was not a hypothetical question. But that doesn't explain why he's still driving taxi, Marcus said weakly. If he was really a professor, he could get a teaching job here. Dr. Hassan stopped right in front of Marcus's chair. Do you know how hard it is for foreign professors to get teaching jobs in America? They need their degrees verified. They need perfect English. They need American references. All of that takes years and costs money. Marcus looked up at her, feeling more and more uncomfortable. But surely a real professor would find a way. He found a way, Dr. Hassan interrupted. He found 3 ways. He drives taxi during the day. He works at a warehouse at night loading trucks. On weekends, he cleans office buildings. Also, he could pay for his children's education. The room was completely silent. Marcus could hear his own heart beating. He was starting to understand that this was not a random conversation. Dr. Hassan, he said quietly, why are you telling me this? She walked back to her chair and sat down. Her hands were folded on the table and she looked directly into Marcus's eyes. Because Ahmed Hassan is my father. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He felt all the blood drain from his face. Around the table, people were staring at him with shock and disgust. Your father? Marcus whispered. Yes, Dr. Hassan said, her voice steady but full of pain. The taxi driver you refused to pay. The man you called dishonest. The immigrant you said was lying about his background. That was my father. Marcus felt like he could not breathe. But you're Dr. Hassan, you're a surgeon. You own this hotel? Yes, she replied. I am Dr. Layla Hassan. I graduated from medical school last month, just like my father told you. I am starting my residency at City General Hospital next week, and I bought this hotel with money I earned working part-time during medical school, and with loans I will be paying back for the next 20 years. Marcus's mind was spinning. This could not be happening. The taxi driver's daughter could not really be the successful doctor he was trying to do business with. That's impossible, he said weakly. You're too young. Medical school takes years. I started college when I was 16, Dr. Hassan explained. I graduated in 3 years with perfect grades. I got into medical school at 19. I have been studying and working non-stop for 11 years, just like my father has been working non-stop to pay for my education. Marcus tried to speak, but no words came out. He thought about all the cruel things he had said about Ahmed, all the jokes about his daughter never becoming a doctor, all the insults about immigrants making up stories. My father called me this morning, Dr. Hassan continued, her voice getting stronger. He was very upset. He told me about a rude passenger who refused to pay him and called him dishonest. He said this man made fun of his daughter's dreams of becoming a doctor. Marcus felt sick to his stomach. Dr. Hassan, I had no idea. No, you had no idea, she agreed. You had no idea that the man you humiliated has published 3 books of poetry. You had no idea that he speaks 4 languages fluently. You had no idea that he gave up everything to give his children a better life. Richard tried to interrupt. Perhaps we could— No, Dr. Hassan said firmly, holding up her hand. I am not finished. She turned back to Marcus and her eyes were filled with fire. You had no idea that my father worked 16 hours a day for 8 years to pay for my education. You had no idea that he sometimes skipped meals so he could save money for my textbooks. You had no idea that he is the kindest, most honest man I have ever known. Marcus wanted to disappear. He wanted to run out of the room and never see Dr. Hassan again. But he was frozen in his chair, listening to every word. And you certainly had no idea, Dr. Hassan continued, that the daughter you said could never become a doctor was sitting at this table, deciding whether to make you a very rich man. The silence in the room was deafening. Marcus looked around at the other people, hoping someone would help him, but everyone was staring at him with disgust and shock. Dr. Hassan, Marcus said finally, his voice shaking, I am so sorry. I made a terrible mistake. I had no idea who your father was. No, she replied coldly. You had no idea who my father was, but that should not have mattered. You should have treated him with respect because he is a human being, not because he might be related to someone important. Marcus felt tears starting in his eyes. He had never felt so ashamed in his entire life. You're absolutely right. I was wrong. Completely wrong. Yes, you were wrong, Dr. Hassan agreed. And now I have to decide what to do about it. Marcus looked at her with desperate hope. Please, Dr. Hassan, give me another chance. I can change. I can be better. Dr. Hassan stood up again and walked to the window. She looked out at the city for a long moment while everyone waited. When she turned back around, her face was sad but determined. Mr. Wellington, she said quietly, I cannot do business with someone who treats people the way you treated my father today. Dr. Hassan walked back to her chair and sat down slowly. Her eyes never left Marcus's face. The entire room was waiting to hear what she would say next. Let me tell you the real story of my father, she began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. The story you never bothered to learn before you judged him. Marcus sat frozen in his chair, knowing that every word was going to make him feel worse about what he had done. My father, Ahmed Hassan, was born in Damascus, Syria, in 1973. Dr. Hassan continued. He was the first person in his family to go to university. He studied English and Arabic literature and graduated with highest honors. She paused and looked around the room. Everyone was listening carefully to every word. He became a professor at Damascus University when he was 25 years old. He taught students about poetry and literature. He wrote 3 books about Arabic poetry that were used in universities across the Middle East. Marcus felt his shame growing deeper. This was not the story of a simple taxi driver. This was the story of a respected scholar. My father loved teaching, Dr. Hassan continued. He would stay after class to help students who were struggling. He organized poetry readings at the university. He was known for his kindness and his brilliant mind. Richard and the other business people around the table were shaking their heads in disbelief at Marcus's behavior. In 2010, my father married my mother, Fatima. She was also a professor, teaching mathematics at the same university. They had 2 children, me in 2011 and my brother Omar in 2013. Dr. Hassan's voice became sadder as she continued. For the first few years, life was beautiful. My parents had good jobs. We lived in a nice house near the university. My father would read me poetry every night before bed. My mother would help me with my math homework. Marcus could picture this happy family, and it made his stomach hurt worse. But then the war came to Syria, Dr. Hassan said, her voice becoming harder. At first it was just news on television. Fighting in other cities far away from Damascus. My parents thought we would be safe. She was quiet for a moment, remembering painful times. But the war spread. By 2016, it was not safe for professors anymore, especially professors who spoke English and had connections to the outside world. My father received threats. Someone threw a rock through our window. Marcus imagined Ahmed receiving threats, and he felt sick thinking about his own threats and insults that morning. One night in early 2017, men came to our house, Dr. Hassan continued. They told my father he had 24 hours to leave the city, or they would kill our whole family. The room was completely silent. Even the lawyers and accountants looked shocked by this story. My father had built his whole life in Damascus. His books, his research, his friends, his career, everything was there. But he had to choose between his life's work and his family's safety. Dr. Hassan looked directly at Marcus as she said this. He chose us. We left that night with 2 suitcases and the clothes on our backs. Everything else, our house, our books, our photographs, our entire life, we left behind forever. Marcus thought about his own apartment full of expensive things. He tried to imagine losing everything in one night and could not. We spent 2 years in a refugee camp in Jordan, Dr. Hassan continued. My father tried to teach the children in the camp, but there were no books, no paper, no pencils. We lived in a tent with 6 other families. She paused and took a breath before continuing. Finally, in 2019, we were allowed to come to America. We arrived in this city with nothing. The refugee agency gave us a small apartment and some basic furniture. That was all. Marcus remembered his complaints about Ahmed's old car and felt ashamed. My father tried to get teaching jobs, but nobody would hire him. His Syrian degrees were not recognized here. His English was good but not perfect. He had no American references. Dr. Hassan's voice became stronger as she talked about her father's struggles. So he took the first job he could find, driving taxi. He had never driven taxi before. He had to learn the streets, learn to deal with difficult customers, learn to work 16 hours a day just to pay rent. Marcus thought about how he had accused Ahmed of not knowing the city well enough. But driving taxi was not enough money for our family. Dr. Hassan continued. So my father found a second job at night, loading trucks at a warehouse. Then a third job on weekends, cleaning office buildings. She looked around the room to make sure everyone was understanding. 3 jobs, 7 days a week. My father worked from 6 in the morning until midnight every single day. He never complained. He never said he was too tired. He never said the work was beneath him. Marcus remembered calling Ahmed lazy and unsuccessful. And do you know why he worked so hard? Dr. Hassan asked Marcus directly. Marcus shook his head, unable to speak. Because he wanted his children to have the chances in America that we could never have had in Syria. He wanted us to go to university. He wanted us to become doctors and engineers and teachers. Tears were starting to form in Marcus's eyes as he listened. When I was 16, I graduated from high school with perfect grades. I wanted to go to medical school, but we had no money. So my father worked even harder. He started driving taxi 18 hours a day. Dr. Hassan's voice became emotional as she talked about her father's sacrifice. Sometimes he would come home so tired he could barely walk. His back hurt from sitting in the car all day. His eyes were red from staying awake too long. But he never complained. Marcus thought about how he had criticized Ahmed's careful driving and slow pace. I got scholarships to help pay for college and medical school, but it was not enough. My father paid for my books, my supplies, my rent. Every dollar he earned from driving taxi went to my education. She paused and looked directly at Marcus. And do you know what my father told me when I worried about the money? He said, "Layla, education is the one thing nobody can ever take away from you. Not war, not hate, not ignorance. Once you learn something, it is yours forever." Marcus felt tears running down his face now. He thought about how he had mocked Ahmed's belief in his daughter's education. "Last month I graduated from medical school at the top of my class," Dr. Hassan continued proudly. "Next week I start my residency in surgery at City General Hospital. And in 5 years I will be a fully qualified surgeon." She stood up and walked over to the window again. "I bought this hotel because I wanted to create something beautiful. I wanted to provide jobs for people like my father, immigrants who are working hard to build new lives in America." Marcus finally found his voice. "Dr. Hassan, your father is an amazing man. I was completely wrong about everything." She turned back to face him. "Yes, you were wrong. But the worst part is that you were wrong about someone who would never be wrong about you." Marcus looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean that if my father knew who you were, if he knew you were the Marcus Wellington who was coming to this meeting, he would have treated you with respect anyway. Because that is who he is." Marcus felt like his heart was breaking. "I don't deserve that kind of respect." "No," Dr. Hassan agreed. "Today you do not. But my father believes that every person has the capacity to be better, even you." She walked back to the table and gathered her papers. "However," she continued, "I cannot take that risk with my business. I cannot partner with someone who judges people by their appearance or their accent or their job. This hotel will serve all kinds of people, and I need a partner who will treat all of them with dignity." Marcus stood up desperately. "Please, Dr. Hassan, I can change. I will change. Give me one more chance." Dr. Hassan looked at him with sadness, not anger. "Mr. Wellington, change is something you have to prove, not something you can promise, and you cannot prove it to me in one afternoon." She walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. "But perhaps," she said quietly, "you can start by proving it to my father." Dr. Hassan walked out of the conference room, leaving Marcus standing alone with the other business people. The silence in the room was heavy and uncomfortable. Nobody knew what to say. Richard was the first to speak. His voice was quiet and disappointed. "Marcus, I can't believe what just happened. How could you treat someone like that?" Marcus felt all eyes on him. The lawyers were packing up their papers. The accountants were shaking their heads. Everyone looked disgusted with his behavior. "I didn't know," Marcus said weakly. "I had no idea who he was." "That's exactly the problem," said one of the lawyers, an older woman named Mrs. Peterson. "You treated him badly because you thought he was nobody important. That says everything about your character." Marcus tried to defend himself. "I was frustrated. I forgot my wallet. I was embarrassed." "So you decided to humiliate an innocent man?" asked one of the accountants. "You refused to pay him for honest work?" Marcus had no answer. Every excuse he could think of sounded pathetic and cruel. Richard stood up and walked toward the door. "Marcus, I've known you for 10 years. I thought I knew what kind of man you were. But after seeing this today, I don't think I can work with you anymore." "Richard, wait," Marcus called out desperately. "Don't let this ruin our partnership." Richard stopped and turned around. His face was full of disappointment. "You ruined it yourself, Marcus. I can't be associated with someone who treats people this way. What if my clients find out? What if my family finds out?" One by one, the other people in the room left. Nobody shook Marcus's hand. Nobody said goodbye. They just walked out, leaving him alone with his shame. Marcus sat back down in his chair and put his head in his hands. The biggest business opportunity of his life was gone. But worse than that, he was beginning to understand what kind of person he really was. He thought about Dr. Hassan's words. She was right. He had treated Ahmed badly not because of anything Ahmed had done, but because he thought Ahmed was unimportant. He had looked at an older man with an accent and decided he was worthless. Marcus tried to remember if he had always been this way. When did he start judging people by their clothes and their jobs and their accents? When did he start thinking that money made him better than other people? He remembered his father, who had died 5 years earlier. His father had been a successful businessman too, but he had always treated everyone with respect. Money doesn't make you a better person, Marcus, his father used to say. It just makes you a person with money. Marcus had forgotten this lesson, or maybe he had chosen to ignore it. He pulled out his phone and started to call his assistant, but then he stopped. What was he going to say? That he had lost a $50 million deal because he was rude to a taxi driver? That the taxi driver's daughter was the person he was supposed to do business with? The story sounded impossible even to him. But it was true. And now everyone who had been in that room would tell other people. Word would spread through the business community. People would know what he had done. Marcus thought about his reputation. He had spent 20 years building respect in the business world. People knew him as someone who made smart deals and earned a lot of money. But after today, they would know him as something else, a man who humiliated immigrants and refused to pay working people. He imagined the conversations that would happen at business lunches and cocktail parties. Did you hear about Marcus Wellington? He refused to pay a taxi driver, and then tried to do business with the driver's daughter. Can you believe it? Some people might laugh at the story. Others would be disgusted. But everyone would remember it. And everyone would know what kind of person Marcus really was. Marcus left the hotel feeling like a different man than the one who had arrived that morning. His expensive suit felt heavy on his shoulders. His gold watch felt cold against his wrist. All the things that used to make him feel important now felt meaningless. As he walked through the lobby, he noticed things he had never seen before. The hotel workers, the doormen, the cleaning staff, the desk clerks, were all working hard to make the hotel beautiful and welcoming. Many of them looked like immigrants. Many of them probably had stories like Ahmed's. How many of these people had he ignored or looked down on over the years? How many had dreams and families and struggles that he had never bothered to think about? Marcus tried to get a taxi home, but when he saw the yellow cars, he felt sick to his stomach. He could not bear the thought of sitting in another taxi, wondering about the driver's story, wondering if he was treating another human being badly. Instead, he decided to walk home. It was 12 blocks to his apartment building, and it was still raining lightly. His expensive shoes were not made for walking on wet sidewalks. But he needed time to think. As he walked, Marcus thought about Ahmed Hassan. Right now, Ahmed was probably driving his taxi through the city, picking up other passengers. Was he thinking about the rude man who had refused to pay him? Was he worried about how to make up for the lost $18.50? $18.50. Marcus spent more than that on a single cup of coffee. To him, it was nothing. But to Ahmed, who was working 3 jobs to support his family, it might be the money for dinner or gas for his car. Marcus stopped walking and stood on the sidewalk in the rain. For the first time in his life, he truly understood how cruel he had been. He had not just refused to pay for a service. He had stolen from a hard-working father. He had taken money away from a family that needed every dollar, and he had done it in public in front of a crowd of people, making Ahmed feel ashamed and humiliated. He had attacked Ahmed's dignity, which was probably more important to him than the money. Marcus pulled out his phone and tried to call information to get Ahmed's phone number. But there were probably dozens of taxi drivers named Ahmed Hassan in the city. He had no way to find him. He thought about going to the taxi company, but he realized he had never even noticed which company Ahmed worked for. He had been too busy being disgusted by the car to pay attention to important details. By the time Marcus reached his apartment building, he was completely soaked from the rain. The doorman offered to help him, but Marcus barely noticed. He rode the elevator up to his penthouse, feeling more alone than he had ever felt in his life. His apartment looked the same as always: expensive furniture, beautiful art, perfect views of the city. But everything felt different now. All his possessions felt empty and meaningless. Marcus went to his bedroom and changed out of his wet clothes. Then he sat on his expensive couch and tried to figure out what to do next. He knew he had to find Ahmed Hassan. He had to apologize and pay him the money he owed. But more than that, he had to try to understand how he had become the kind of person who could treat another human being so cruelly. For the first time in years, Marcus Wellington felt truly sorry for something he had done, and he had no idea how to make it right. Marcus spent the rest of the day in his apartment, unable to concentrate on anything. He tried to work, but every time he looked at his computer, he thought about Dr. Hassan's disappointed face. He tried to eat lunch, but the food tasted like nothing. All he could think about was Ahmed Hassan and the terrible way he had treated him. By evening, Marcus knew he could not just sit in his apartment feeling sorry for himself. He had to do something. He had to find Ahmed and make things right. Marcus called every taxi company in the city. Most of them would not give out information about their drivers. A few companies had drivers named Ahmed Hassan, but none of them matched the man Marcus remembered. Finally, one dispatcher told him, "If you're looking for a specific driver, your best bet is to go to the taxi stand at Central Station. That's where a lot of drivers wait for fares at the end of their shifts." Central Station was 20 blocks from Marcus's apartment. He had never been there before. Rich people like him did not take trains or buses. But tonight, Marcus walked the 20 blocks through the dark streets. Central Station was busy even at 9 o'clock at night. People were coming and going from trains and buses. There was a long line of taxis waiting outside the main entrance. Marcus walked along the line of taxis, looking for Ahmed. Most of the drivers were sitting in their cars, reading newspapers or talking on their phones. Marcus felt nervous approaching them. What would he say? How could he explain what he was looking for? At the fifth taxi, Marcus saw a familiar face. Ahmed Hassan was sitting in his car, writing something in a small notebook. He looked tired, but he was still wearing the same clean but old clothes from that morning. Marcus stood beside the taxi for a long moment, trying to gather courage. Finally, he knocked gently on the driver's window. Ahmed looked up and his face showed surprise and worry when he recognized Marcus. He rolled down the window slowly. "Sir?" Ahmed said carefully. "Is there something wrong?" Marcus felt his throat getting tight. Seeing Ahmed's kind face made his shame even worse. "Mr. Hassan," he said quietly, "I came to find you. I need to talk to you." Ahmed looked confused but not angry. "Of course, sir. What can I do for you?" Marcus realized that Ahmed was still being polite to him, even after everything that had happened that morning. This made Marcus feel even more ashamed. "First," Marcus said, reaching into his wallet, "I need to pay you for this morning's ride." He pulled out a $50 bill and handed it to Ahmed through the window. $18.50 for the fare and the rest is a tip. Ahmed looked at the money with surprise. "Sir, this is too much. The fare was $18.50. I do not need such a big tip." "Yes, you do," Marcus said firmly. "You earned it. And I'm sorry it took me so long to pay you." Ahmed took the money but still looked confused. "Thank you, sir. But why did you come all the way here? You could have forgotten about $18. Marcus took a deep breath. "Because I met your daughter today." Ahmed's face changed completely. His eyes widened with surprise and worry. "You met Layla? Where? Is she okay?" "She's fine," Marcus said quickly. "More than fine. She's amazing. And I owe you a much bigger apology than I can ever give." Ahmed got out of his taxi and stood facing Marcus. Even though Marcus was taller and wore more expensive clothes, Ahmed had a dignity that made him seem like the more important person. "Sir, I do not understand," Ahmed said. "What happened with my daughter?" Marcus felt tears starting in his eyes again. "She was the hotel owner I was supposed to do business with today. Dr. Layla Hassan, the surgeon who bought the Grand Palace Hotel." Ahmed's face showed confusion, then understanding, then something that looked like sadness. "Oh," Ahmed said quietly. "Now I understand." "Mr. Hassan," Marcus said, his voice shaking, "I am so sorry. I was cruel to you this morning. I said terrible things. I refused to pay you. I humiliated you in front of all those people." Ahmed nodded slowly. "Yes, you did." Marcus had expected Ahmed to be angry, but his voice was calm and sad. This made Marcus feel even worse. "I had no idea who you were," Marcus continued. "I had no idea about your education, your sacrifices, your amazing daughter. I judged you completely wrong." "Yes," Ahmed agreed. "You did judge me wrong. But that is not the worst part. Marcus looked confused. What do you mean? Ahmed looked directly into Marcus's eyes. The worst part is that you only feel sorry because you found out I have an important daughter. You only care about treating me well because you learned I used to be a professor. Marcus started to protest, but Ahmed held up his hand. What if I really was just a taxi driver? Ahmed asked. What if I had no education and no successful children? Would I deserve to be treated badly then? Marcus felt like Ahmed had hit him with a physical blow. The older man was absolutely right. No, Marcus said quietly. You wouldn't deserve to be treated badly. Nobody does, Ahmed nodded. That is the lesson you need to learn. Every person has dignity, no matter what their job is, no matter where they come from, no matter how much money they have. Marcus stood there in silence, feeling the full weight of his prejudice and cruelty. Mr. Hassan, Marcus said finally, how can I make this right? How can I earn your forgiveness? Ahmed was quiet for a long time, thinking carefully about his answer. You cannot earn my forgiveness in one day, Ahmed said finally. Forgiveness is not something you buy with money or apologies. It is something you earn by changing who you are. Marcus nodded, understanding that Ahmed was right. But, Ahmed continued, I can tell you how to start. Please, Marcus said. Tell me. Ahmed walked back to his taxi and pulled out a worn photograph from his dashboard. It showed a young man in graduation robes smiling proudly. This is my son Omar, Ahmed said, showing Marcus the picture. He graduated from engineering school last month. But he cannot find a job because companies see his foreign name and think he is not qualified. Marcus looked at the photograph. Omar looked intelligent and hopeful, just like his sister. I am still working 3 jobs, Ahmed continued, because Omar needs money to live while he looks for work, and because I am saving money for him to get his master's degree. Ahmed put the photograph back on his dashboard and looked at Marcus. If you really want to make things right, Ahmed said, help my son find a job. Use your connections in the business world. Give him the chance that your prejudice almost took away from our family. Marcus felt a spark of hope. Here was something concrete he could do, something that would really help Ahmed's family. I will, Marcus said with determination. I promise you I will help Omar find a good job. Can you give me his contact information? Ahmed wrote Omar's phone number on a piece of paper and handed it to Marcus. But remember, Ahmed said seriously, this is just the beginning. Real change means treating every person you meet with respect, whether they can help you or not. Marcus nodded. I understand. And Mr. Hassan, thank you. For what? Ahmed asked. For teaching me something I should have learned a long time ago. For showing me what dignity looks like. For being a better man than I am. Ahmed's stern expression softened slightly. We are all learning, sir. Every day we have a chance to be better than we were yesterday. As Marcus walked away from the taxi stand, he felt different than he had ever felt before. The shame was still there, but it was mixed with something else. Determination. He pulled out his phone and started making calls to business contacts. It was late, but this could not wait. By morning, he would have job interviews set up for Omar Hassan. And for the first time in his life, Marcus Wellington understood that his wealth and connections were not just for making himself richer. They were tools he could use to help other people build better lives. He had learned this lesson from a taxi driver who had every reason to hate him, but chose instead to teach him. Ahmed Hassan had shown him that true success was not measured in money or possessions, but in how you treated other human beings. It would take Marcus years to become the man he wanted to be. But that night, walking home through the city streets, he took his first real step toward becoming someone his father would have been proud of. And somewhere across the city, Ahmed Hassan was driving his taxi home to his family, knowing that sometimes even the most unlikely people can learn the most important lessons. The wheel of karma had turned full circle, and justice had been served not through revenge, but through the power of human dignity and forgiveness.